So my goal here, Mark, is just to talk to you about yourself, and of course, the main thing is to talk about big records. A few weeks ago, about a month ago now, I interviewed Michael Botte of the Michael Botte Band.
Oh, let go of what you know. Won't you just let go and dance with the shadow by a small firelight. Dance with the shadow.
As we were talking, he mentioned big records a couple of times, actually. And so I got a little curious, so I looked you guys up, and I thought what you're doing is really interesting. I like your approach to making a community of musicians and creators who are working all together. And what I also like, for example, Michael is a musician and he's signed with big records, but he's also part of the sales part of things for you guys, I understand, from your website. Is that correct?
Well, so referring to Michael Botte, we became fans of him close to a year ago, and he just became such a part of our family that whenever I find people, whether it's musicians or wherever from, that are quality people that have a passion for helping musicians and being a part of music and whatnot, I always want to work with them. So we approached Michael at some point of saying, "Hey, let's involve you more deeply in our our company," and he thought that was a great idea, so we've been integrating him into our team. So yes, it's true.
Yeah, and I saw a couple other artists who I believe are also signed with big records and also do other things with the company.
Not just with our company, but I try to support artists in their lives, in their businesses, in whatever they're doing. Some are full-time music, and some are part-time, and then there's people that have nonprofits and other businesses, and they can be sponsors and charities, and it's a matter of identifying what a person wants to be and supporting their wholeness of who they are, not just as a musician, not just, hey, let's put your music up. Let's support you as a person, your life and your family and your job and your whatever. And this is how we build partners in that you say, well, how do you get sponsors and how do you get, because everybody knows somebody
Right.
that can become involved in whatever way. So using the talents of people and the ideas is the whole think tank of big records.
I'm working on myself. Sometimes I need some help. I tend to hold a grudge when I've been wronged. Don't know if that makes me weak or strong. You shouldn't live rent-free in my head, but sometimes I dwell on the things you've said. It doesn't matter in the end, 'cause you're relevant. But this isn't about you. I'm over all the things you make me do. I've wanted to someone you never
Yeah, that makes sense to me, because I have been reading about, I mean, mostly on Big Records website, but also having spoken with Michael and just kind of doing my research, I think you had said a couple times that your main goal was like to build a community, family feeling within the company, within the record label itself. So that makes sense. And then when I started looking at the services that you offer, it's incredible. Like what you just said, trying to see the whole person, right? So not just as a musician, but also like you're also looking at how to take that music and have it placed in movies, for example. Like I know you guys did something with Disney, you've done some independent films, different things like that. I guess for me, it makes sense that you're extending that beyond just like the services. It's like, how do we work together on this, So I found that really cool. And then I read the non-exclusive thing. How did you decide on that? I'm curious about how the non-exclusive idea came along.
As a musician growing up in the old school music business, companies were very big and they would control the artists. I wanted to be the opposite of that. I wanted to bring big label services and connections and leverage, but not control the artist. So I did something to start that was quite unpopular, to be honest. It was looked at, 15 years ago when I started, it was looked at as, you find an artist that you believe in, you sign them, you take ownership of everything they do, and then but you pay for everything. And that's how labels worked. And they could drop you and they had the full control. I wanted the opposite. I felt, well, I think where it's headed is artists need the services and the leverage of a big label, but they don't want to be controlled. So they would sooner pay for, as a label themselves. They would rather stay independent and pay for things that they need in a big label sense, and then they still own everything, right? So if we can develop high-end services and trust and transparency and results, then they would, of course, want to be with us, fine with us, because we're not taking anything from them. They pay us a fee. It's very reasonable, and we provide more than what they pay for. Always provide more so that there's satisfaction there. And we're not selling dreams. We're not selling, we can make you $1 million or, this or that. Water finds its own level. If you can be given the opportunities as an artist, then it becomes up to, fate and some luck and this and that, what happens as a result of that. But I always had a problem as an artist with, what's behind the locked door. You see other people doing well and you wonder how are they doing this? I felt an open book was the way to do it. All artists know how each other's doing things. It makes it a great little community. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. Because so one of the things you mentioned, like, the amount that the way the money is exchanged, basically, like the way the money moves in this process, you offer a large number of services, including the marketing things like the SEO and all that kind of things. Really, the list, I can't even remember the full list. There's a huge list of things. And so is it like on a per service basis that that big record says, okay, if you would like us to try to get you placement in an indie film, we charge this fee, or it comes out of the deal?
No,
I read that part.
no, what?
Go ahead.
Yeah, and this is important. So we charged about $2,200 US for 1 year. Okay.
Okay.
And then after that, it becomes incentive. So commission after that.
Okay.
So in the first year, um, we provide an umbrella of things because to succeed in one area, you actually need to succeed in the other areas as well. You cannot just say, for instance, oh, I want to have my music in film. Well, we just had a song in a Disney film where part of what Disney looked at was how your numbers were online. It wasn't just looking at the song; it was looking at, that made a
If anybody's
difference.
already listening to it, or yeah.
So, are you touring? Are you? So one thing affects another. People can't just carve out a little piece and say, okay, this is all I want. That's not effective
Right.
because another reason. So you're you're with our team and we're talking to one of our agents, and then he says, and you say, oh, I don't really want to play live. I want to just, and but yet the booking agent has a contact in license.
Right.
So it's really an umbrella cost. And then from there, you just go in the directions that you need to go, right?
Okay. Yeah, because that would be different for different types of artists as well. I know, or I shouldn't say I know, I think that you're not looking at genres per se. You're looking at people whose music you like and people you want to work with, people you think, have share this vision that they're going to sort of try to, I guess make things bigger. Is that accurate to say?
Yeah, I like to look at us as we're watering the flower. The flower is the flower, but we're going to be able to water the flower, and it's going to become whatever it is. And then the next flower is going to look different, and trees and this and that, providing whatever is needed. And it's what's interesting is over the last 15 years since I've been doing this, I've become so familiar with um, branching off into almost any direction that somebody needs. There's somebody came to me a few years ago and wanted to buy a bus company, and I helped them. Yeah, so
Okay.
and it's like, and then I started to work. Yeah, because he's a musician, right? And
Right.
he's he drives bus for some of the stars, right? He's the guy who arranges the tours and stuff. Yeah, how can I buy my own? And so we began to go through that together. Uh, I
Wow.
can help almost anybody now just because of doing so many things, meeting so many people. I help people do almost anything. We talk with government officials, charities. We're aligned with the Veterans House charity, and they help veterans and disabled people all around the world. We're working with the Papua New Guinea government in bringing our television show there. And when you meet all these different people, I met the president of Cambodia last September, and in New York, and
Wow.
just so so when you start to talk to all these people, and suddenly just opportunities pop up, right? This is what I think people who grew up. I grew up in a family where they punched a time clock,
Right.
and they looked at it as a risk to jump away from that model.
Yeah.
And somehow I didn't fit that. I
Hmm.
tried. I tried to fit. I felt more secure not having someone else being able to control my living.
Right.
I felt it better to start my own thing. That way, no one can fire you. No one can, This is what musicians are dealing with all the time. It's so entrepreneurial. You have to get out there. You have to take some risks. When you're taking risks, you meet people that you
Yeah.
want to keep in your posse. If you stay in your home, this is one of the problems with kids these days: is too much screen time doesn't teach them how to take chances and get out there and meet people and be public, all
Right.
that. And so you got to have those skills. You got to have those skills as an artist, and not easy. Constantly test yourself and say, okay, and you'll learn how to take risks that aren't as risky. You'll learn how to minimize, but only through making mistakes. I made a lot of mistakes, so it makes it better, right?
Yeah. I mean, I jumped ahead a little bit. We just sort of jumped right into what Big Records is, but we didn't talk at all about, you said, growing up as a musician and the old school and stuff, we're from likely the very same school. Like
Mm,
I saw you started as a mixing engineer at White Ladder in
mm.
2004, I think it was, right?
Going back a long time. Now you're testing my memory.
Well, the point, I mean, without being specific on the date, I mean like
Yeah.
20 years ago, you were doing like you were mixing, and then you went into
See,
Rosner Management.
yeah, I was a bass player, and I toured around. I had my fun. And at some point, I don't know. It was like Forrest Gump when he runs to the end of the road and he stops and he goes, hmm. And then he just turns around and
A
goes,
little further.
I just decided it was time. I wanted to learn about behind the music business, like the behind the scenes. I wanted to learn what made it all tick. And so that's what I did. But my first love being bass guitar. And second, I love to record Pro Tools and create music and all of that. But again, I didn't want to become a studio person, and that I wanted to know the more complex side of what happens after. There's a lot of people that record music, and it's fun. I love recording, and I don't blame anybody for just recording and recording and recording, but all the music stays in the basement. I
Right.
want the harder thing is how do you get it out there? How
Yeah.
do you how do you what else is there in the music business? So indeed, I'm a person that got bored a lot with simple things, and I needed a vision that was big enough that would keep me interested in my life.
It's so funny because talking with you and reading earlier over the last couple of days, I've told so many people. So I was a musician. I was playing in different bands and stuff and doing the touring thing. And I told a lot of people I still love music. It's the business part that I don't like. And I really
Yeah.
wish I knew someone like yourself back then, because I think that that would have been different. Like I didn't like, so a 360 deal with a record company is what you're kind of describing. They own and
Yeah.
control everything, including your merchandise and your take from the venues and everything, you know? That's what a
Yep.
360 deal actually is. But to me, I wish the definition was what you guys do. Because it sounds to me like really you guys are giving the 360 deal in a whole like a that word, but not that meaning.
No listening to distant voices, always seem like shouting in the rain. Too much time making real bad choices. It's no wonder that it ends all the same. No more looking through rosy glasses, getting fooled time and time again. Always fail those history classes, little victories every now and then. When the landslides, give another try.
I'd say prior to 2012, it couldn't have existed.
Couldn't do it.
Because even when I started, I had a, you know how when you want to climb a big mountain, you don't jump to the top, you just start with the step in front of you. So I started with next steps, but I always thought, okay, non-exclusivity, that's what I want. I want freedom of information. I want people to know what they're getting into, which is what I always had a problem with. There's no information coming, right? And then the internet comes and you get all this bad information, right?
Yeah.
So having trusted people on our team, I think we have about 15 people on our team now around the world and more partners beyond that. But they all have their own unique experience. And so they're meeting, and then the artists get all of that knowledge and those connections
Right.
for them.
I
So
love that.
transparency.
Yeah, I love that because that was kind of what I was talking about back in the day when I said, you know what, I'm not going to continue with this path because I don't like the business side of things. And that was
Yeah.
what I didn't like is that there were people who knew all this stuff and they didn't seem to be, and I don't honestly think they were in my best interest, and they didn't have my interest foremost in their minds. Like if they did, they would have told me things like, okay, when we take you out to dinner and we treat you like a rock star, that bill is going to be taken out of your advance later. You know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
the money that we're paying you, you're paying for that bottle of champagne. We're not paying for that.
Mhm.
I didn't know
Yeah.
that. I didn't know those things. And someone like you, I mean, you just said this is our fee for the year. And then, depending on the type of thing you're doing later, different just the fact that you said an
Well,
actual number. Thank you.
I'm a guy. Yeah, well, for sure, transparency is everything, and nothing is for free. So if you want professional people, you got to pay for
Yeah.
it. But I'm a big guy. When I go into a buffet, I look at everything. I go, wow, I love all this stuff. So I go and I take a little bit of each thing. But my second time around, I just go back for what I like,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know. And so as an artist, to have all the information in front of you is super valuable, because then you can formulate, where do I want to go with it? How do I get a Billboard charting song? Well, okay, so here's what you need to do. Here's what now the best part about it is that everything costs money in this world.
Yeah.
That should not determine true art. Art should be on its own, and it's where we go to during the first year as well is, if you're wanting to get to these levels, it costs a lot. There's a lot of things I could name them, but a lot of things cost money.
Mhm.
How do you get there? How do you get there in the music industry? Well, you can't work a day job and make enough money eventually for some of this stuff that, because the Hollywood scene and flying around the world and this and that, you've got to have support from sponsors.
Yeah.
So how to get sponsors is key. How to get nonprofits working with you. How to give back to the world something, because the more you give, the more you reach out and make the world a better place, the more things will come back to you in the office.
Yeah.
So it's really not about what you see on the internet with what's available in the music business. That's just company trying to make, Spotify streams here, pay $300 for this. We have the information. Information and knowledge is key. And once you have information, they can say, that company called me and they just do this and it's not good. So you find out about everything because, and I started out Rosner Management. I wanted to put my name on something that people knew. That's my desire is transparency. Right. I don't think people want anymore to be given a false sense of what's ahead. Like, hey, we're going to make you this. I think what they would rather is like, what's his name, Han Solo. He said, "Never tell me the odds." Right?
Yeah.
They just want to know, what they're up against, and then that's fine, right? Just go with it. We all know it's hard to make. Stop with all that stuff. My father wanted me to be in a very basic job, and I said no. At 45 years old, he said, "I see what you're doing, and I'm proud of you." Finally, at 40, I go there. I had to go where I need to go. So people have to go and do what they're doing in the art form, and but they need information. They need to know if I do this, if I want to go play in Cambodia, what's that like? It's what's it going to mean, or Africa or whatever.
I think based on what you've just been saying about your focus on the artist, but also like as they see their potential, it's kind of like, to me, it reminds me of when I was starting to learn how to speak Chinese, and when I moved to China. A friend of mine said, it's like a big cave, and little by little, you're shining a flashlight into the cave, right? And as you walk through, you start to understand a little bit more of the landscape of what you're getting into. And it feels like to me, that's what you're providing to people is they start off with, I write songs. Great. And now you say, okay, here's what you can do with those songs. Here are the places those songs can go. Here's what's available. And then as they understand that, then they start to understand sort of like connecting the synapses.
Well, you're exactly right. The and we started out development. And what I knew right from the start is that at some point, to have always the next step for artists, we are going to need to have another element to this, which is dealing with the Live Nations of the world and the big artists, this and that. And that's key thing to what we're doing too. So we handle Live Nation things and tours and this and that,
right,
for some pretty big artists. And what that allows us to do is have whatever level an artist is at, we can add value to what they're doing.
right.
So it becomes for the development and the development artists. The development artists can always see how to get to the next level, and then artists that have lots of experience and hits, this and that, they're often saying, "Hey, I know the way the industry used to work, but what do we do now?" Right? So we have a good handle on working with established artists as well, on what to do for them as well. So that's we've included both, all areas and everything in between now, which is hard. It's hard to do. But we've just been doing it long enough where we got people in every area that you can imagine.
Right. So I guess we've been talking like very directly about your view on how Big Records supports the artist, and how not just as an artist but as a person developing, etc. If we pull it back, like, and you look at, okay, as a company, what would you say are like what's your vision for how you'd like this to grow in the future? Is it just you get more artists, or like what? I don't know. Do you guys have like a 5-year plan on where you want to be?
I wanted to have a vision that was big enough that can continue to grow forever, and then pass it on and that kind of thing.
Right.
We've got our hands in everything from television to touring to philanthropy to everything. I don't think there is a lid on this. The lid would be the new people that come along, the people who just maybe discover us now and say, I can bring to this, whether it's investors, sponsors, artists, all levels, just people that understand we're about, like our television show that we've been developing called Rise Up.
Rise Up. Yeah.
And it's about rising up out of your personal certain, whatever they are.
Rise Up Fall Tour 2021.
Rise Up TV. One luxury tour bus. 5 bands playing for 5 days in 5 different venues. Introducing Kylie Styles, Tim Steinruck from The Mighty One, Son of Man, from Mexico, The Beast, and Revolution Engine.
I think we're a tree that can just keep doing this. That's what I want to just build into it, entrepreneurial new ideas. We work with the former vice president of Oracle. He's a philanthropist. And Hived, yes, out of San Francisco, Barry Perkins. Great example of a person who's just got so much to give and so much wants to do, and we want to just support that. Any innovative ideas, creating new things is where we want to go.
Rise Up TV presents the Legacy in Motion Tour in support of the Friends of the Keith Whitley Corporation. Featuring, from Canada, 3-time ISSA award-winning songwriter Tim Steinruck. Papua New Guinea's King of Reggae, Anselmo. From Canada, Tiller's Follies, Bruce Coughlin and Nolan Murray, and sensational songstress Sarah Smith. North Carolina's rising country star Ronnie Cole, and independent country music Hall of Famer Stephen Kay. Rise Up TV, the Legacy in Motion Tour.
You're probably the second person in less than 2 weeks that I've asked a similar question, like sort of what's your view for the future? And the answer was similar. I'm feeling like that question is a bit of an old school question, because it's more like, what's my 5-year plan? No, it's like, we're going to keep growing. And it's, I remember years ago, I did a situational leadership professional development course, and it was more about like, you can't really say exactly what your plan is until you know what the next situation is. So as the next artist comes along and says, hey, you know what? I know about how to use AI in a way that doesn't take away, possibilities for human musicians, for example. That person comes along and says that, and you have a new branch sprout out of your tree that you never would have imagined. So 5 years in the future might be just too limiting to think that way.
Something Miles Davis said, I'm not a huge jazz fan per se, but I know enough. Miles Davis said there are no wrong notes. Wrong notes depend on the next note you hit.
Yeah, that was with Herbie Hancock. That there was an example with Herbie Hancock playing in concert, and he played what he thought was a wrong note, and he cringed. And Miles Davis looked at him angry. Turns out he wasn't angry that he played the wrong note. It was the fact that he thought it was a wrong note.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and how else are you going to discover new things and where to go if you don't cross the line? And this was one of my personal things growing up in the church. Is one of the things that is true in life is that if you put your hand on the burner and it's on, you're going to burn yourself. Then you're going to learn.
Yeah.
And so you have to have the ability to cross the line a few times, know where the line is for you.
Like you mentioned your dad, that it took a long time for him to sort of understand and feel proud as a dad. Rick Rubin said something once. He said, if you play a song for somebody and everybody loves it, then you haven't pushed the boundaries far enough. So, when you started doing this, If people were 100% comfortable with what you were doing, then you were probably pushing in the wrong direction.
I agree. And we see it in a lot of instances in the world. There can be people and things that fly a flag of one thing or another, and they're actually not. And to be authentic means stepping on people's toes, means saying something that's not popular.
Yeah.
And we see that, not to get too far into one side, but we see too much now of, and I'm sorry if this doesn't sound right, but the censorship of ideas is never right. Okay. It's not wrong to protest, not wrong to say what you really think and put it out there. And somehow we as a human race need to say, you have the ability, you have my go ahead to say or do what you want. I don't have to do that myself. There's too much of this on social media, people censoring or telling people what this or that. You're allowed to say and do what you want. It doesn't mean I have to do the same thing.
Right.
And so I think that people in general, and it's true in music, if you're going to be writing a song and you're putting too much formula in it, it's not going to be that creative. And I've known some people that are staff writers that write the same song over and over, right. Because it works, right?
Right. Yeah.
This is unfortunate.
Still quick
to really, yeah.
We started off saying really specific things about what you guys do as a company and how you develop people. I think it's useful to include in it why and how you approach that, how you see that. At the end of every time that I speak with someone, I always ask the question: is there a question that I didn't ask that you wish I had asked?
Oh, wow. I'd have to think about that. Okay, so I mean, I honestly can't think of. I think we covered. The non-exclusivity is the important thing. The sense of community, building a community, and the sense of having a team of transparency. I think those cover everything for me about what, the rest is just details.
One thing I was wondering, when I saw the incredible list of services that you guys offer, I thought, how do you ensure quality? I think you've answered that, and tell me if I'm wrong, but I think you've answered that question for me, because it's about transparency and community. So you're just watching out for each other together. Like the community of people in big records are.
Well, there is a good question there. You're saying, how can we possibly deliver for 70 artists around the world, in the way that, well, because the think tank involves our 15 people on our team. So each one has their responsibility, and each artist can tap into the radio, the publicity side, the touring side, just licensing, branding, all these experts giving their opinions. And then we have a Monday night Zoom with our artists, and we take on a guest. And so we might have the head of Sony Orchard or this or that one week or whatever, people asking the question. So you can, just like a buffet, you can pull in what you need from it.
Right.
And then we also have our partners, which are endless amounts of partners that, I know this guy from 5 years ago. I've got a booking agent in London that'd be perfect for you. Blah, blah, blah. That's how it happens. It's just a large network.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense to me. You've said it more specifically than what I sort of conceived, is like, you're just bringing in everybody's talents and you're all helping each other, and transparency is huge. That's a big part of it. So thank you so much for taking the time. I know you're squeezing me in between two meetings that you had this afternoon.
Thanks so much, Jeremy. I really do appreciate your time and your passion for what you do.
Thank you. I appreciate you chatting with me.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Care.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Don't forget to like and subscribe. Good night.